Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another brief social studies presentation. Before we get started, I just want to remind us of our good note-taking tips. Remember that you should always be taking notes on the most important things only, and if you need to, feel free to stop the video and finish writing or typing anything that you need to. So let's get started here. We're talking about exploration and colonization in the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries. Just a little bit of background information. Once Columbus quote-unquote discovered the New World, the European countries realized that there were two major continents standing in their way between them and the Far East. Motivated by God, gold, and glory, our three Gs, Europeans began exploring with fierce intensity in order to attain those three Gs. Spain, England, France, and the Netherlands were really the forerunners of exploration at this time. They were exploring pretty much more than any other European country. Meanwhile, Portugal, instead of sailing west, continued to sail east, south of Africa to get to the Indies in order to trade. So Spain, England, and the Netherlands, and France, those are the countries we're going to be focusing on today. And we're going to start off with Spain here, who absolutely wanted to explore to spread Christianity, find gold and riches, and really expand their empire. Spain had the most powerful navy in the world in the 15th and 16th centuries with the Spanish Armada. The Spanish Armada was absolutely the most powerful fighting force on the seas, and Spain really used that to their advantage to conquer native peoples in Mesoamerica. We know that Spain was able to defeat the Aztecs. They were also able to take down the Incas, and as a result, they were able to create the colony of New Spain, which spanned most of Mexico and South America. New Spain was a colony controlled by the crown. And when I say controlled by the crown, I mean the king or queen of Spain. However, the king and queen were all the way across the ocean. To help them run New Spain, they installed people called peninsulares. A peninsulare is a person who is born of Spanish descent. They are fully Spanish, and they are put in charge to maintain power in New Spain. They run the day-to-day operations. It's important to note that the Spanish crown would not put a peninsulare in charge who was not fully Spanish. A peninsulare had to be fully Spanish in order to attain that position, because Spain didn't want any people who are of native descent to help run their empire. They wanted to keep it just with fully Spanish people. Some notable Spanish conquistadors or conquerors are Hernan Cortés, Ferdinand Magellan, and Francisco Pizarro. Cortés was famous for defeating the Aztecs. He conquered Tenochtitlan and really controlled the Aztec Empire within the span of about 2 years, which is very impressive. Ferdinand Magellan was the first person in human history to circumnavigate the world. And circumnavigate essentially means to sail all the way around. Francisco Pizarro, much like Hernan Cortés, was responsible for conquering native peoples, but Pizarro conquered the Incas of South America. Between these three conquistadors, the Spanish were really able to wreak havoc in the New World. You can see a few important maps here that you should definitely know. You have Columbus's voyages, which started it all, in the top right corner of your screen. You could see Magellan's route at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, how he sailed all the way around the world. He circumnavigated the entire world. And then Hernan Cortés' voyage on the left side of the screen, you can see how he takes his route through Tenochtitlan, where he conquers the Aztecs. The second country that we need to talk about today is England. England was a little bit different in the way it set up its colonies. England offered charters to businesses and individuals in order to control parts of the New World. Some famous businesses that attained charters were the British East India Company, the Virginia Company, and the Plymouth Company. A charter essentially was a document given to a business or an individual that basically said, according to the king, that that person or business had the right to rule that area of land. Roanoke was the first attempted permanent English colony, and it failed miserably. We've talked about Roanoke quite a bit. We know that it disappeared and it ultimately failed. But luckily for England, they had a few successful colonies, including the Jamestown colony, which was established in 1607 in Virginia, and the Plymouth colony in Massachusetts in 1620. But instead of the crown ruling those areas, they were issuing charters to certain people or businesses in order to make exploration possible. Again, a charter is a document given to a business or individual that gave them permission to rule that land. Some important English explorers that we should know are Henry Hudson, Sir Walter Raleigh, and Sir Francis Drake. Sir Francis Drake, just like Magellan, was one of the first people to circumnavigate the world, except he was the first Englishman to do it. Francis Drake was also a privateer, which is basically a paid pirate, against the Spanish Armada. Obviously, Spain and England were not friends at this time. They were both trying to get as much land as possible. So Francis Drake is really a major player in that war against Spain. Sir Walter Raleigh, he was responsible for chartering the Roanoke colony. He's the one who got the charter from the King of England. And Henry Hudson is responsible for founding the Hudson River, the Hudson Bay. He did a lot of exploration in New Jersey or near New Jersey by the Hudson River, and you can see his map right here on the screen. Our next country is France. France is a pretty interesting case in terms of exploration. New France was the name of the colony that was established by the French, and like Spain, it was controlled by the crown. France specialized in hunting and trapping for money. Essentially what this means is that hunters would go and they'd find animals and kill those animals and take their pelts or their fur and sell them in Europe for a profit. Fur was very attractive at this time, and as a result, the French made a lot of money from this. The French also wanted to spread Catholicism or Christianity, but they did this in a way that was much more peaceful than the Spanish. As a result, the French established friendly relations with the Native Americans. They did not really have any major conflicts with the natives, unlike the Spanish who really decimated native populations. We've talked about Jacques Cartier and Samuel de Champlain. We know that New France was essentially in Canada and the western part of the Great Lakes region. But two other explorers that I want to mention very briefly are Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet. They attempted to find a northwest passage just like Cartier and Champlain. However, as they traveled through the Great Lakes region, they found a body of water that they thought would lead them to the Far East. Unfortunately for them, it led them south, and they inadvertently discovered the Mississippi River, which would become a major passageway through North America, not east and west, but north and south. The last two colonies I want to talk about are New Netherland and New Sweden. First, New Netherland. It was established by the Dutch of the Netherlands, obviously, as a series of trading posts and forts really along the green section of the map on your right-hand side of the screen, basically by the Hudson River, where Henry Hudson traveled about 20 years earlier, 10-15 years earlier. In 1626, a man named Peter Minuit became the director of the colony, and he purchased a small island from the Native Americans. He used iron and non-precious stones to basically buy it from them, and he renamed this island New Amsterdam. That's what the Dutch named it. It's what Henry Hudson had explored about 15 years earlier. And in about 40 years from when Minuit purchases the island, the British take it over and they rename it Manhattan, which ultimately becomes a major trading port in the New World. Minuit was so successful in his purchase of Manhattan that eventually Sweden hired him to help develop the colony of New Sweden, which is the orange section of the map located in southern New Jersey and Delaware and eastern Pennsylvania. Here you have a map of essentially where these countries settled. You can see New Spain in all that green, taking over basically all of Mexico and northern South America. You can see the blue of the English on the eastern coast of the United States, and wedged in between it is the Dutch settlement of New Amsterdam. And then to the north along the St. Lawrence River is New France. We should all be familiar with these images and really what the setup is for the New World during the Age of Exploration. If you have any questions or are unsure of anything, make sure you pause the video and you really review this information. It's important to note what is on the slides and what I have talked about. Definitely get a sense of where these countries settled in the New World. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.